Morning, everyone, and I welcome all of you to joining us today from um across the country and of course beyond, like Canada. And it's my privilege to be the moderator for this special occasion, as it marks the centenary of late Dr. M.S. Swaminathan. And this panel will invite us to reflect deeply on his contributions to agriculture, rural development, and social empowerment. This event has brought together an extraordinary panel of development scholars, scientists, and practitioners whose lives and careers have been somewhat influenced or shaped by uh, late Dr. Swaminathan's vision. And the significance of this event reaches far beyond a typical ceremonial remembrance, because we gather not only to honor a great scientist, but to critically engage with his ideas at a time when the world faces persistent questions about food security, climate change, environmental sustainability, and rural livelihoods. So Dr. Swaminathan was often, of course, hailed as a father of India's Green Revolution, and indeed he played a pivotal role in it. But his legacy and the focus of today's dialogue will extend far beyond this. His contributions have always embodied a more holistic view of agriculture, recognizing that technology alone cannot be the engine of progress. So he championed ecological sustainability and social equity, envisioning what he aptly called in as evergreen revolution, a concept that just goes beyond higher yields and include conservation, biodiversity, and all-inclusive rural development. Alongside advances in crop science, he also advocated for farming practices that balances scientific innovation with resource conservation and climate resilience technology. So his unwavering attention to the empowerment of small landholders and marginalized farmers, gender equity, and rural prosperity continue to guide today those at the interference of research and practice. And his founding of MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, which all of our panelists were associated with at some point. It connects that technology with rural societies, and it's a foundation which has demonstrated that progress in agriculture must be driven by a combination of knowledge, compassion, and a commitment to ecological justice. So, as an academic researching in areas related to food sovereignty, indigenous knowledge system, and development, I have found a deep resonance personally with his interdisciplinary approach and my own scholarly interest in sustainable agriculture and rural livelihoods. And while pursuing my PhD in IIT Madras, which is an institution largely known for its rigorous training in science and technology, I often encountered this enduring debate between arts and sciences and their respective knowledge production, and continuous debate like what knowledge production is better or what we call quote unquote superior. Those were parts of debates in IIT, and it still persists to some extent. But the legacy of Dr. Swaminathan beautifully resolved this tension through his commitment to interdisciplinarity. And far from compartmentalizing science and social sciences, he integrated biology, ecology, economics, and social policy development studies to address complex agrarian and social challenges. And his career exemplifies how bridging art and sciences can generate holistic solutions that are scientifically sound, socially inclusive, and ecologically sustainable. So today, as we face crisis of climate change, land degradation, and complex questions around social justice, especially in rural India, his multidimensional approaches reminds us that productivity, it's not just about productivity, but also about dignity, agency, and well-being of the farming communities. And his work anticipated contemporary debates about sustainability, equity, and community-centric agrarian policies. So this event aims to do justice to the breadth of Dr. Swaminathan's philosophy by bringing together these diverse perspectives, lived experiences, and current research to chart a pathway for an inclusive transformation. So through this interdisciplinary panel discussion, we hope to pay tribute to his vision while also looking forward to how it can inform our responses to today's urgent agricultural and environmental change. Before I start the panel discussion and before I request Professor Sudarshan to give his opening remarks, I would like to request my colleague, Dr. Shamindra Roy, who is an assistant professor in IDEAS, to speak briefly about IDEAS and what it does in JGU and how it works as a center. Shamindra, if you're there, you can just go on and briefly give us an idea about it.
Thanks, Avinita. Thanks, panelist and respected Professor Sudarshan. I would just take note from what Avinita just told. It's all about interdisciplinarity, like also bridging the essence of arts and sciences together. At Ideas in Jindal, which is interdisciplinary exchange across social sciences, if I break down ideas, we are really trying to put together these thoughts from various disciplines and coming out with a confluence of work. And from that, all these things rooted up. So to go a little bit of history, this is a small office in Jindal which started as a research confluence across various schools. It's a fascinating university. Lots of excellent works being done. So what Ideas provided was a place where faculties from different schools can come and brainstorm together to promote interdisciplinary research and also learn from each other. From there, this thing has developed. And going ahead, we have expanded, we have scaled up, and now we are offering specific programs on Masters in Development Practice and Masters in Development Studies, where we aim to build a community of researchers where who are not only be able to do practice development studies as a bookish knowledge, but also like to know what are the practical applicability of it. Going back to again what MS Swaminathan has been doing at that point of time, and I think that's a very essential impetus the program is being aimed for. So I'll stop there to talk about it. We look forward to learn much from this talk and this panel discussion of today, and take this to build our disciplines and our core conceptualities in a better and formative way. Thank you, Avanita.
Thank you, Dr. Shamindra. Now I would like to invite Professor R. Sudarshan to give his opening remarks. And I think some of you have known him over the years. So Professor R. Sudarshan is a professor and dean at the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy. And he had a distinguished career in the domain of research, development, programming, and governance. So he has a master's degree in economics from the Delhi School of Economics. And he was elected to a Rhodes Scholarship, and he joined the Balliol College, University of Oxford, and obtained a master's degree in politics in 1977. He was elected to a research fellowship also at St. John's College, University of Cambridge, and was appointed policy advisor for justice and governance in the UNDP Oslo Governance Center. In 2005, he was transferred to the UNDP Asia Pacific Center in Bangkok, where he was regional policy advisor for governance, human rights, rule of law, justice, and legal reforms. And then he joined Jindal School of Governance and Public Policy as our dean. So now I would invite respected Professor R. Sudarshan to give his opening remarks for this event.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to everyone who thought that we should get together and remember Dr. MS Swaminathan in the centenary year. I think that's it's a very, very thoughtful thing to do because it's kind of enhancing for all of us to have had an association with him. I must begin with a kind of a humorous comment that a good friend of Dr. Swaminathan once made to me. That was Sanjeevi Guhan. Mr. Guhan was in the IAS, and then he left early and became an academic at the Madras Institute of Development Studies and was an advisor to Mr. Karunanidhi. So Guhan once said to me that, you open the day's newspaper on any day and you would find there's a report of ULFA having done, killed somebody in Assam. There are droughts in Rayalaseema and Andhra. There's floods in Bihar. And Dr. M.S. Swaminathan wins another award. So this man had countless recognitions, but the wonderful thing about him was that, he was the humblest of people. Never was so humble that all of these distinctions that the world conferred upon him, the Environment Prize and other things, he didn't, wear that, and flaunt it at all. And my own association with him began when he started the Swaminathan Foundation, because I was working in the Ford Foundation at that time, and the head of the Ford Foundation was Gordon Conway, who's an agriculture scientist, who was very close and knew Dr. Swaminathan very well. So we began an association, I think the Ford Foundation and the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, when Gordon Conway was in the Delhi office. And so that's when I first visited, very soon after the foundation was established. Earlier I knew Nitya. I edited a book with her, Dr. Swaminathan's daughter, on women's empowerment. But this, after Dr. Conway, I saw a lot of Dr. Swaminathan because of the circumstances in which I was. I moved to the UNDP India office in 91, and the first project that I wrote there was to support the foundation to do a kind of an ecological survey of 15 ecological zones. Dr. Swaminathan was concerned that food security is one thing, it's important. Nutritional security is important, but very important for farmers is livelihood security. And he was able to see that if you're just going to rely on, some subsidies from the government, and the lot of the farmer is that they were destined to remain poor and very often in debt. That's not a situation we should be tolerant about. And so he was concerned that all farmers need to be encouraged to move into some kind of agri-business. And therefore, this project was to look at these 15 ecological zones in India and figure out in each of them what are the likely prospects for farmers to move out of just growing some grain or growing some fruit or vegetables to engage in processing, marketing, and so on. And he was also conscious that the children of farmers didn't necessarily want to continue as farmers. We see the consequences of that in the place where Madan and Dr. Roy and all of us work in Sonipat, where farmers are selling their lands. They are cash rich, but their children don't want to farm. They don't know what to do with the cash. So these are consequences of a certain kind of prosperity that was unleashed here with the Green Revolution. So Dr. Swaminathan was a visionary in that sense. He anticipated that farmers and the farming community needed this connection to livelihoods to ensure that they're not just growing the grain and dependent on government. And so we produced this, and then Dr. Manmohan Singh became the finance minister in 91, and Dr. Swaminathan had a meeting with him with the results of these studies, that it's feasible in all over India to identify non-farm but farm-related business opportunities for farmers. And Dr. Swaminathan persuaded Dr. Manmohan Singh in his very first budget that Dr. Manmohan Singh presented. I mean, people talk about how the 91 reforms changed India, but many may not have noticed an important part of the budget speech which Dr. Manmohan Singh devoted to was to Dr. Swaminathan's idea to create a small farmer agribusiness consortium. Now, I have to say that that was a visionary thing and he was a receptive policymaker. But the bureaucrats in our government, instead of giving full fillip and supporting the small farmer agribusiness consortium with complete funding, in a bureaucratic manner, they said central government will give 50% of the funds and the state government should give 50% of the funds. Now, nobody had at that time gone and talked to chief ministers and the states. And of course, if you're a bureaucrat in the state government, you will say, why should we, pay money into a scheme that's been conceived by the central government? If they want the scheme to succeed, they should pay the full amount. So none of the very few, I don't think any state actually contributed the 50%. But in bureaucracy, nothing changes in a way. There is still an office of the Small Farmer Business Consortium in New Delhi. It has an IAS officer appointed to work with it, but nothing of the on-the-ground engagement that Dr. Swaminathan envisaged in each of the 15 ecological zones of India took off. But he was, he took these things in a stride, attempting to. And then the other association I have with him was he inducted me to work as part of the secretariat of the International Commission on Peace and Food. And I was then very involved in human development in the UNDP India office. And so he thought that there ought to be a chapter on human development in that report. But he was very gracious and invited me to a meeting in Oslo, which was chaired by Gro Brundtland, who was then Prime Minister and a member of the Commission. Another meeting was in the home of Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter in Atlanta. You see, Swaminathan was completely at ease with a humble farmer, going down on his knees and worrying about some pest that's coming up in the plant, in the wheat plant in this part of the world, in Punjab, and with Jimmy Carter, Rosalind Carter, prime ministers. He was at ease with all of them. It's an extraordinary personality to be the same person, regardless of in whose company you are. And so this report came out. So again, that indicates his visionary thinking in terms of food security, the nutrition security. The Nutrition Foundation of India was greatly inspired by him. And then livelihood security for farmers, and ultimately, really, peace and stability in the world. Because he realized that over time, the great conflicts of the world will not necessarily be over land, it would be over water as a scarce resource. And how to think forward so that you ensure peace. So that's why we had a commission on peace and food, and its report was published. And he was at ease with various people. Mary King was a member of that commission. She was an associate of Martin Luther King, and has written a wonderful book of all the young people who were part of the civil rights movement in the United States. The range that Dr. Swaminathan had in terms of the people that he worked with, Queen Noor of Jordan was a great admirer and a member of that commission. So I think, therefore, it's not simply, I'm glad you talked about going beyond the Green Revolution, which was the very beginning. Now, who could have persuaded a scientist, Norman Borlaug, to send all the several tons of seed to India? And fortunately, at that time, we didn't have the big companies, the Monsantos of the world, talking about intellectual property. And in that respect, Dr. Swaminathan always acknowledged that the farmer was also a scientist, that the grain of basmati you now have is a result of farmers carefully selecting and separating seeds for their genetic qualities and experimenting and getting a grain of the kind that now is a source of considerable wealth to farmers who grow basmati and export that rice. But he was also conscious that medicinal plants in Wayanad have been protected by tribals in Wayanad. And without those tribals conserving these plants and knowing something about their qualities, having a fund of knowledge about the medicinal properties of medicinal plants, which rest with the tribals, which are now being tapped by the pharmaceutical research institutions around the world. They may isolate the active ingredient in a plant that responds to some diseases. But the indigenous people knew about it. And I remember a very moving conversation we had. He was trying to propose a gene bank and a gene fund that would support indigenous peoples. It didn't, Government of India didn't proceed with that idea as well. But what impressed me was he was dialoguing with these tribals in Wayanad, and it's both sides. The tribals understood Dr. Swaminathan wanted them to benefit from what they had genuinely contributed to the welfare of humanity in their practices. But when he talked about some kind of a fund and they would get some money for it, they said, this is a gift of nature. We can't take money for this. This is not, we don't want any money for this. This is what we do. We know it helps people, but you can't find some kind of a fund and give us some little money. They said to him, we can see where your heart is, but it's against our values, right? So this was such a lesson because it was incommensurable to the worldview of the tribal that they would try to make money of something that they had inherited from their forefathers, and they considered it to be a common property, a common good, a public good that shouldn't be monetized. So I said this once to Michael Sandel, who wrote a book called What Money Cannot Buy, that he should include a chapter in that book in another edition on the worldview of India's tribal people, who are poor. They could do with the money, but it's a question of principle. And here was this man who understood this and would be on equal terms with them. So the range of his contributions was wonderful. But I should also say, though, I spent a lot of time with Meena Swaminathan, extraordinary person, a great source of strength to Dr. Swaminathan. She didn't accompany him to Oslo or Atlanta or such places. She was rooted in the foundation. In a way, the idea of an evergreen revolution is to be given. Credit should be given to her. She cared about, what we now regard as important nutrition for the infant, the early child care and child nourishment. She mobilized the women in Tamil Nadu who'd come in significant numbers to the premises of the foundation and have some joyous meetings and all feel empowered. So I think in paying our tribute to Dr. MS Swaminathan, we should also include Dr. Meena Swaminathan in it, because she was his lifelong companion and a source of strength to him. They didn't flaunt their kind of relationship and so on. Each worked as a professional in the foundation. And did, had several programs. They were managing independently, seemingly of one another. But at home, I think this was India is grateful that we had a couple like Dr. MS Swaminathan and Meena Swaminathan. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Sudarshan, for giving us anecdotes on his life and legacy, and at the same time, the way you have blended it with his professional contributions. And I'm really glad that you brought up Dr. Meena Swaminathan. Not many people know about her and her contributions to his career life and her own professional work in the foundation. So I'm glad that you brought it up. And I think we'll start the panel discussion now. As Professor Arun has requested that he would like to speak last, so I'll ask him a question at the end of our discussion. But now the panelists who are present here, I would like to ask a common question to all panelists. And maybe Dr. Rengalakshmi, she can start. So the question to all the panelists is, Dr. Swaminathan's work emphasized integrating scientific innovation with biodiversity conservation, climate resilience, and equitable farmer welfare, and also the empowerment of rural communities. And in today's context of escalating climate change and its impacts on resource constraint and social inequities, how can his comprehensive philosophy guide contemporary agricultural policies, research, and grassroots practices to build a resilient uh, food system and a more sustainable livelihood system, which is inclusive and adaptive to future challenges? So I think Dr. Rengalakshmi, she's the Executive Director, Area Operations at MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. And I think, ma'am, if you can start the discussion.
Not able to hear you, Ranga.
Yeah, you're on the mute. We are not able to hear you. I think we are still not able to hear you. Mm.
Yeah, she's joining now. No, you are not audible. Yeah. So you can move and
No, ma'am, you're not audible. Is the AV team there, or is there a problem with Dr. Rangalakshmi's laptop? I'm not sure. Yeah.
Is it audible now?
Yeah.
yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for the interference. Here, basically, when Professor Swaminathan started the foundation, he has been advocating how the Evergreen revolution can be practiced or operationalized in the context. So at the national level, there are several policies have been brought in through several schemes, but operationalizing those concepts into a kind of a practice after the Green Revolution, it was a challenging period. So in that context, his framework consists of three major elements. One is the ecological principles, how that can be brought in. It can be integrated with advanced technologies and also social equity. So these 3 points frame the whole core of the interventions in the field. So when we are talking about sustainability and environment, so how the operationalization of sustainable agriculture are in the form of organic farming, or in of natural farming, or nowadays it is called as a regenerative agriculture. So there are many different forms how this sustainability and environment principles can be rooted with the small and marginal farmers, both at the farm level and also at the community level. So these two things are very, very essential, because at the farm level, it is focusing on profitability. At the community level, it is focusing on ecological services. Both should go together to bring a kind of sustainability in the environmental perspective. When it is coming to the farmers, the profitability of the farmers are farming, that is very, very crucial for them to sustain in the farming. And Professor Sudarshan was also mentioning about the small farmers' viability and also continuing in agriculture. So that is a very, very crucial part in the context of transition which has been happening right now. Right now, it is basically focusing on feminization of agriculture, and also youth are moving out of agriculture. So in this context, how the principles of bringing the farmers' sustainability or profitability can be operationalized through different interventions. That gives a long-term viability of agriculture in the context. And the third principles he keep insisting is the land and water reforms. How different land use patterns can be making a kind of a dent in agriculture, because that keeps changing because of the reasons at national as well as the global level. But in the context, how this land management and water reforms can be put in practice. In the water, both supply as well as the demand side, how the augmentation principles can be integrated. And here also at two levels, he advocated the principles, one at the farm level, another at the community level, how these two can be integrated to bring a kind of a sustainability perspective. Land, it includes soil also in the context of changing the soil quality, and also linked with profitability and the nutrition quality of the produces. It plays a crucial role how the soil can be handled. And the fourth element is the market reforms. He has been constantly addressing these four things together. When market is a kind of an platform which support farmers, definitely that brings a revolution in terms of production and also sustaining the production at the context. In this whole framework, the four guiding principles at the grassroots level is are necessary to bring a kind of a continuity in action. One is about his own principles of how the grassroots level problems should be communicated to the researchers, and researchers should also understand the grassroots level issues. So both should go hand in hand. He usually used to call us lab to land and land to lab. So these principles have been continuously followed, rigorously followed in the foundation to bring the context into the issue. Second major element is empowering the marginalized communities. So foundation has the principles of pro-poor, pro-women and pro-nature. So in that itself, the caste as well as class and gender elements have been integrated while fixing the problems, working with the communities, and also taking the issues to the next level. So that empowering marginalized communities are the core in all our interventions that leads to change in the structural aspects at the community level. So along with the ecological economic impacts, the social impacts are also very, very crucial denominator in taking up all our interventions. And the third element in this is the community-based management. So always the communities are partners. The farmers, our agriculture laborers, our tribal communities, our youth, they are all partners in all our interventions. So with that such partnership, we could able to make change and also moving them to the next level of growth. And the fourth important element is, I think Professor Arunachalam as well as Dr. Balaji will speak about this harnessing ICT technologies, how the digital technologies can be effectively used in the development, both for learning and also for advisory based decision making. So these four principles are very core in taking the initiatives, and right now the current policies and the programs need to integrate all these elements in practice, so that whatever programs or policies are laid out at different levels, state or national or global level, will it get translated into action at the grassroots level. So with that, I stop here. Thank you.
You are on mute, Abhinita.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rengalakshmi. And now I would like to request Dr. Bhavani to respond. And she has been associated with MSSRF for a long time. And she served as a director of the Agriculture, Nutrition and Health Program at MSSRF. and a consultant with FAO in the UN. And she's currently a senior fellow with MSSRF and has been working in this sector of development in the last many years. So I would like to request her to respond to this question, ma'am, please.
Thank you, Abhinita, and it's a pleasure to be part of this panel. And I would like to take off from both, draw on both the introductory remarks that you made and Professor Sudarshan's reflections. When Professor Sudarshan talked about his attention, his concern and care for the farmers and the livelihood security of farmers. So when Professor Swaminathan chaired the National Commission on Farmers from 2004 to 2006, this was the first time that we had a National Commission on Farmers. The farmer was at the center. We've had commissions for agriculture earlier, but this was the first time the National Commission on Farmers, and the emphasis was on the farmer's livelihood, his income security. And another point which came to me as Professor Sudarshan spoke was about the interaction with the indigenous tribal communities and farmers' rights, the need to recognize them. So the early consultations on these farmers' rights, on conservation of biodiversity, which eventually led to two important national legislations on that we now have, the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act and the National Biodiversity Act. These were all held at the Swaminathan Research Foundation under the guidance of Professor Swaminathan. And reflecting on the question that you have posed, Abhinita, so essentially, I think Professor Swaminathan was a visionary who saw the big picture and had an inclusive approach in terms of making sure that all aspects were addressed. So his very definition of evergreen revolution as increasing productivity in perpetuity without associated ecological harm. So if you, it's only in recent times that at the global level, the UN system has started talking about, people, prosperity, and planet, and something which became very much talked about during the UN Food Systems Summit. I would like to, just as an example, draw on Professor Swaminathan's work during the National Commission on Farmers. I worked on the commission as officer on special duty with him. And in the final report of the commission, the final chapter was titled, Shaping the Economic Destiny of Farmers. And although this report was submitted in 2006, and it's nearly 2 decades later that we are talking now, but the points made are very much relevant even today as we grapple with the issues of climate change, water insecurity, and challenges, related challenges. So there were 3 major strategies that he proposed. One is defend the gains, which is in the heartland of the Green Revolution, Punjab, and Haryana, and Eastern UP, Western UP, which are facing challenges of groundwater exploitation, soil salinization, the need to promote conservation farming, restore soil fertility. There were several examples given and suggestions made on the steps that need to be taken. The second, in terms of extend the gains to the Indo-Gangetic plains, so Eastern UP, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Orissa, Assam, the Northeast, West Bengal, the northeastern states. So Bihar, he called the sleeping giant in the field of agriculture. In the face of the challenge of climate change, the need to have good weather codes, the need to have monsoon code, flood code, so that you're prepared under all circumstances. If it is good weather, how do you benefit from it? If there is an adverse condition, what are the measures to be taken? So that preparedness, the need for such preparedness. And the third pillar strategy was to make new gains, Rangalakshmi spoke about harnessing of technology. So harnessing the available technologies, biotechnology, information technology, eco-technologies to make farming viable, attractive for youth. So attracting and retaining youth in farming was also one of the aspects or the issues addressed by the National Commission on Farmers, and how to ensure that farming is again a viable proposition. They need to pay attention to food safety, to pay attention to food loss and waste. So the need for emphasis on post-harvest processing, value addition, addressing the entire value chain. And along with livelihood security, the new need for, of course, nutrition security as well. And there is this framework that he drew up for an end-to-end utilization of the plant, like, for example, the rice plant. Each different parts of it can be utilized. So the concept of the rice biopark was something that he conceived, which can again be replicated for other crops. So but if one goes through his writings, there is so much that is still very much of relevance in the face of the challenges that we face today. If only we paid attention and came down, tried to do things the way he envisaged, which at the foundation level, we are trying to do in a small way, but at a larger level, the uptake has to be much more uptake is required, and one hopes that will happen sometime. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhavani. Now I would like to request Dr. V. BALAJI, who is a special advisor to the President of the Commonwealth of Learning, COL, based in Vancouver, Canada. And he also serves as a Director of Technology and Knowledge Management at the Commonwealth Learning, and previously worked with the foundation as a Director of Informatics. So sir, can you please go ahead?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manthi, for your kind invitation. It's very good to meet Dr. Sudarshan after a long time in this space. So I'm going to be brief. Dr. Sudarshan referred to the year 1991. That was the year the foundation actually launched its official program areas. The first program area related actually to climate change. They called it coastal systems research. The idea was to harvest salt-tolerant genes from mangroves and introduce them in food crops eventually. That was the vision, and it took a long time. I mean, genetic engineering those days was not a very easy science. It took a very long time, but the fact was, even Professor Swaminathan called it anticipatory research, because the need for this research was not visible to anybody at that point in time. Yet he launched it, and it became a very successful operation in the foundation. It endured for almost 20 years. A lot of good results came out of it. So that is one, but I'm going, Dr. Swaminathan, we are all referring to Evergreen Revolution. Dr. Swaminathan is credited with a lot of things that came out of Green Revolution. Some people even called him the father of Green Revolution, but he always said that he was the scientific leader, not really the father of Green Revolution, because there were many other. He always attributed the real authorship to late Lal Bahadur Shastri ji, the then Prime Minister of India in 1960s. His real core in Green Revolution came from science, very hard science. That was the time, when he started his lab in IARA back in 1950s. That was the time one of the biggest problems that world faced was the possibility of a nuclear war. And there was some amount of research going on in Europe and North America on the impact of radiation on biological tissues, etc. And Sweden was a leader, United States, of course, was a leader, etc. Because of what happened in Hiroshima, etc., they were studying that. But the genius of Dr. Swaminathan in science was to take those methods, but apply them to creating mutations in plants for benefits, to create benefits, rather than study it only from the angle of a weapon creating damage and possibly doing more weapons research. He simply shifted the attention in the lab in IRA. He called it the gamma garden because they worked with the gamma radiation. So that was a major shift, but it was very lightly done. And that's one reason why eventually when when the Royal Society published its own obituary of like Professor Swaminathan, they identified him as a major contributor to the environmental impacts of radiation. But he didn't stop there. Today, when I tell you, you have a School of Public Health in the Jindal Global University, when I say today that air pollution, continued persistence, exposure to nitrogen dioxide, and airborne pollutants can increase the risk of dementia. Today, it's no surprise. I mean, that's actually an official WHO communication today, right? It doesn't surprise any of us, right? And when we talk about persistent chemicals increasing the risk of cancer in human beings, that doesn't surprise us either, because that's a National Academy of Sciences official result. Today, these are taken for granted, that pollution will lead to genetic damages and can cause unusual variations that can be malignant. That's taken for granted. But it wasn't so in 1960s. People simply thought that pollution will lead to toxicity. That was the thinking. But one day back in 1991 again, I met professor in his house for something, and he showed me a typescript. He asked me to read a paragraph. That was a very beautifully formulated paragraph on how green revolution, the phrase green revolution at the time the typescript was developed had not been coined. It was early part of 1968 that he wrote that script, and it mentioned that this pollution would increase and it would cause a lot of health issues and in ways that we did not even understand. And this problem of pesticide and chemicals will continue because we need them for food production. So he said there is a much bigger dilemma. Now, William Gadd coined the term Green Revolution months later. This was presented in Indian Science Congress in 1968, January. So then I was telling him that maybe, you should take this chapter, this particular talk, along with a few others, and publish it as a booklet. So there is a booklet called From Stockholm to Rio, which was the third publication of Swaminathan Foundation at that time. Now, the link between pollution and genetic damage was not at all easy, and that came through the work of a small number of scientific groups world over, and one of them was Professor Swaminathan's. He worked with Professor A.T. Natarajan, who passed away in 2018, almost close to professor in age, but was his PhD student. Between them, they arrived at detailed ways to understand how radiation would be causing not only genetic damage and how pollution will create effects very similar to radiation. That was a major breakthrough. And in my view, it has not been adequately credited to Indian science. I mean, a lot of people think that Sweden did it. A lot of people think that United States did it. In fact, Professor A.T. Natarajan himself moved to Sweden after doing work with Professor Swaminathan. And he's credited with discovering the impact of pollution from mercury going into fish, eventually reaching the human, food ecology, and causing serious genetic damages to human beings. All this was done starting with a lot of nuclei. The nucleus of all this research was in Pusa Institute. So again, as part of today, we are talking of health and nutrition, food, etc., in an integrated way. They were not talking about it so then. And a lot of the scientific basis for that came also from Professor Swaminathan's work. In other words, that's true scientific leadership. It's multidimensional. It sort of looks at issues more holistically than typically a lab scientist would look at. So that is one point I wanted to mention, that this is the real enduring legacy. I mean, this is also an aspect of Evergreen Revolution. We are looking at human well-being from the angle of economy, from the angle of human being as a member of society. But the core of the human being, the health and the food, the scientific basis of that was also already well established. It's something that probably, in a new way and in an altered way, scientists in India should be able to, but they probably have to take it up in ways that we could not imagine earlier, or we cannot even imagine even now. This is what I wanted to share with you. I thank you once again for this opportunity, Dr. Mahanti.
Thank you so much, Dr. Balaji. And some of the points on pollution are very relevant to the place where we are located now in Delhi, Sonipat region. And now I would like to open this up to individual questions to the panelists. So first, I would start with Dr. Rengalakshmi. And given her background in agriculture, nutrition, and health, with your background in sustainable agriculture, climate change adaptation, what innovations or practices do you see as most critical for advancing the evergreen revolution in the current era? Some of the challenges and some of the practices that can enable that.
Yeah, thank you. The 4 different elements, as Professor has been shared while sharing the success of Green Revolution, still that is more relevant to the current context as well. But how do we operationalize it? That is the question. One is talking about the public policies, and second one is the technologies which has the dimension of ecology, environment, economics, equity, energy, and employment, the 5 different dimensions. Then the services, that is basically input or output or credit services which are essential for the farmers, and most importantly, the farmers' participation. All 4 these dimensions are very, very crucial in the context, in the current context, to take it forward the contemporary challenges of climate change, nutrition, and also farmers' profitability. So given this phase of small farms, which is more productive than the higher farms, that has been showing by different researchers using different context. Here, there is a need to enhance the productivity. And also, as Bhavani mentioned, this is in perpetuity without ecological and social harm. So these 2 dimensions are very, very important. So when we are implementing any policies, these 2 dimensions we need to take care. Many times we see ecology as a kind of a key impact area without giving considerable attention to social side. So both are equally important. And second point is the rural infrastructure in the context of changing the agrarian relationship and also changing the farming practices at the grassroots level. We need to give much attention how the rural infrastructure can enable especially the women farmers to take the lead in taking forward the initiatives of some of the sustainability elements. And apart from infrastructure, the key element which is necessary to bring or connect is market. So when market as well as the infrastructure is getting focused, definitely women farmers play a major role in taking forward the initiative of sustainable agriculture in the form of regenerative farming or natural farming, whatever the macro level policies has been framed. When coming to the specific focus on biodiversity, and Professor has been a kind of an advocate of biohappiness. So during our last centenary celebration also, this is the core theme in which discussions have been initiated. Still, this is in the concept level, but how do we translate this into action? Basically, biohappiness, building on biodiversity so that it enhances the human health, nutrition, livelihood, creating harmony between people and nature. So that is a very, very crucial part which has been his legacy throughout his implementation period from 1960s when Green Revolution was propagated. At that time itself, he mentioned about the ecological harm it has been happening due to the continuous adoption of certain practices. So when we are talking about new policies and programs, definitely people and nature should be the core and around which the program has to be developed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to ask Dr. Bhavani a question, given her expertise in linking agriculture with nutrition and health outcomes. So how can agriculture policies be further optimized to improve nutrition security especially among smallholders and marginalized farmers in India with little access to technology?
Yeah, so Professor Swaminathan would often say, given a country with a large population dependent on agriculture and allied activities, and a country faced with this huge challenge of malnutrition, we need to look for agricultural remedies for nutritional maladies. So while the Green Revolution led to increase in productivity, mainstreaming the nutrition dimension in agriculture was something he started laying emphasis on over a period of time. And towards the latter part of his life, he conceptualized this idea of farming system for nutrition. So understand the nutritional problems prevalent in an area, and based on the natural resources available, the crop husbandry, animal husbandry, access to forest resources that the community there is practicing, how can you have an integrated farming systems that will ensure both livelihood security and nutrition security of the small and marginal farmer? And this is something that under his guidance from the other foundation level, we tried out to demonstrate the feasibility of a farming systems for nutrition approach in a cluster of villages in Koraput district in Orissa and Wardha district in the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra, two very different agroecological regions. And one problem across the board on the malnutrition front is that diets in both urban and rural areas are largely cereal dominated. So a starting point becomes, how do you bring about dietary diversity? So a more diverse and balanced food plate. So attempting to achieve that through diversified production on the field, through better cropping practices, better quality seeds, those kind of support, so that they get better yields, and also focusing on nutritious crops, so nutrient-dense crops on the cropping side. There would definitely be income-generating commercial crops grown by the farmer as well, which they would continue to grow, and help can be given to better lead to better incomes from that front. But cultivate nutrient-dense crops and bring it into home consumption. What are the animal husbandry resources that a small farmer household can harness, be it livestock, small ruminants such as goatry or poultry, fishery, and nutrition gardens of fruits and vegetables, and all of it supplemented by awareness as to what is the kind of nutrient you would get from where the vegetables as the source are, and how important it is, and how not having it.
There is an echo, I think, in your background, ma'am. We are not able to hear you.
I don't know what the reason is. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, now it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. I'm almost towards the end. So essentially, yes, the need to mainstream the nutrition dimension in the farming system, agriculture, to focus not just on production and productivity, but also to aim for nutrition security upfront. And this is something at the foundation level, under his guidance, we took up in terms of advocacy for nutrition sensitive agriculture with state governments, and at the national level with NITI Aayog and the ICAR system, and which is something that the foundation is still engaged in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhavani. Now I would like to like Dr. B. Balaji to respond to this question, that how can digital technologies and ICT be leveraged effectively to empower rural communities and accelerate agricultural knowledge dissemination to improve livelihoods, because he has previously worked as Director of Informatics with the MSSRF. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Even till very recently, a few months back, RENGALAKSHMI and I were working on some kind of applications of current ICT, I mean, especially mobile messaging. And then I again go back in history. Back in 1992, Professor Swaminathan organized a dialogue on information technology reaching the unreached. The proceedings are published by Macmillan India. And now it's almost 35 years, I mean, over a generation back. But if you look back on it and look at what's happening today, you'll find that a lot of promises discovered in ICT in agriculture at that time are yet to be realized in the context of a country like India. I mean, mobile smartphone development and its spread is a very big breakthrough. I mean, it's occurred in ways that many people, most of us, don't understand. Yet, it has not caused the kind of changes that many professionals and senior experts envisaged back in 1992. Like, for example, agricultural extension hardly integrates with mobile messaging even today. There are stray experiments, but there is nothing like a systematic integration of these two. We have India as a leader in areas like UPI and in digital ID, I mean, using biometrics such as Aadhaar. And there is no effort to link that to improving livelihood security in rural areas. These are still not there. What's happening is, in a sense, social capital formation, mobilization are happening outside the world of technology development. So that gap continues to exist. I can only surmise that that's largely because, I used to work in international agriculture for a while. And my understanding was that the people who were piloting technologies that eventually led to green revolution are still in charge of international agriculture. They control FAO, they control the CGIAR, but they're also the kind of people who do not want information communication technology to spread rapidly inside agriculture in developing countries. They have, in a sense, reserved it for private sector intervention. Like Professor Sudarshan alluded to Monsanto, Pioneer, etc., and Walmart. I mean, these are all people with a lot of interest in agriculture, and they are very tightly controlling the diffusion of IT into that system. In fact, Gates Foundation, which is the new generation Rockefeller Foundation, they would not at all agree to doing systematic national level population scale work on ICT in agriculture. They've always allowed a showcase project. I mean, there are showcase projects in India too that Gates Foundation promotes world over, but they also very tightly control its diffusion. That's because, the idea that autonomous spread of IT in agriculture could probably liberate 20 to 25% of farmers of India, which could include a lot of women, into doing very creative things in ways that are no longer tenable in the kind of larger agroeconomic system that has been built in the world for 2 generations is a possibility. So, because of geopolitical changes, we have situations where a major funding agency such as United States Aid, which played a very big role in professionalizing and controlling agricultural research internationally, it's no longer there. Maybe it's a cause for liberation. We don't know. Maybe it's going to be, or maybe Gates Foundation can impose new ideas on our civil servants, like Professor Sudarshan frequently alluded to them. They could impose new ideas. Cornell and other land grant colleges could impose new ideas and can lead to potentially new confusions. We don't know, but the fact is that there is a lot of creativity here that I see in a country like India that still has to be tapped by technology developers in the world of ICT. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now welcome to Professor Subbaiah Arunachalam, and he had requested that he would like to speak last in this panel discussion. And he's a visiting professor at the DST Center for Policy Research, Indian Institute of Science, and a distinguished fellow at the Center for Internet and Society in Bangalore. And my question to him is, Professor Arun, you have been associated with the International Institute for Communication and Development's 4D program at MSSRF for over 10 years. So what was the vision of Professor Swaminathan regarding integrating information and communication technologies and holistic rural development? And how can we realize his vision on information and communication technologies, helping to integrate rural development nationwide, and its impact on farming and fishing communities as well as women, rural women.
You are on mute, sir.
You are on mute. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
First of all, I have a confession to make. I am the least qualified person in this panel to talk about Swaminathan and his contribution, because my association with him is only in the last few years of his association with the foundation. The others have spent much more time with him and very closely worked with him. So mine was something like a dew on a lotus leaf. When I came there to the foundation, worked at my time, and things like that. So others joined him as regular part of the foundation. I imposed myself on the foundation, invited myself. So I had that liberty of doing what I liked, and Balaji gave me tremendous amount of freedom to do what I liked. And in the initial 2 years, I did something of my own, and then slowly I picked up interest in what Balaji and his team was doing. That's why I came into ICT for D. And then I found out that we are all making mistakes. For example, every time we talk about India, we talk as if India is a country. India is not a country, India is a continent. This is a mistake all of us make. There are many kinds of people, different faiths, a whole list of caste systems, cultural practices, civilizations, agricultural practices, and so on. So this one size fits all solutions won't work here. Coming to information technology and how it can improve, not just agricultural productivity, but a whole lot of things. The project that Balaji brought to the foundation with the support of the IDRC in Canada, we should be grateful to them. They gave the initial funding for the project. They started with what is called spread spectrum technology, what is being used by the Indian Railways. So, and then they've slowly moved on to web and things like that as it develops, but not fully integrated yet. Finally, we ended up with using space technology for our purposes. That is where I had a small part to play. So Professor Swaminathan and I met Mr. Nair, head of Space Commission or Space Department in Bangalore, and requested him that if neither of us knew anything about space technology, neither Swaminathan nor Arunachalam, but we thought it could be useful because we are already using the Qualcomm and INCOI's data, satellite data, and Navy, US Navy data, and things like that. We thought, why can't we use Indian data? So we met Nair, and then he was more than willing to be of help. In fact, he was very reverential to Swaminathan, and he said that if he had called him, he would have come to Chennai rather than Swaminathan coming to Bangalore. Anyway, all the courtesies beyond, he appointed 2 officers to work with us, and they used to come once in a while to the foundation. And the head of our group after Balaji left, on Mr. Senthil Kumaran, he dealt with them. And we learned a lot about how to use that. And finally, we started using that technology with the help of the Space Department. And Swaminathan did a great thing. He invited Manmohan Singh to inaugurate the program. And then some of our guys went to Delhi, set up the setup for him at his home. And for a whole hour, Mr. Manmohan Singh was devoting his time to the Swaminathan Foundation. At 3 different centers, our people assembled and they asked questions in Tamil, and some of us translated into English for Mr. Singh and his colleagues, and it went off very well. In fact, in one of the centers in Thiruvayyaru, Mr. Manishankar Iyer was there on a tour with some colleagues from France to show things around his constituency. And one of my colleagues told me that he saw Manishankar Iyer going in a car. Then he suggested that one of us should rush in a motorbike, stop the convoy, and suggest to Manishankar Iyer if he wanted to, he could come and listen to a major thing happening. Manmohan Singh inaugurating a program for Swaminathan Foundation. And he agreed. He came and he listened to us at that time. Anyway, that was one of the important things we did during the time I was associated with the project. And then another thing we did was Swaminathan was always interested in making things available to everybody. I was also interested in the same thing. He was interested in making agriculture-related knowledge or development-related knowledge to reach, or nutrition-related knowledge to reach the entire community of the world. I was interested in scientific and technical knowledge to reach out to the entire world. So it melded. I mean, I was very interested in that. So I suggested to him that we are doing this village research center, village knowledge center, and things like that in Pondicherry. And our colleague, Bala, who is not here today, unfortunately, because he had to look after two elderly women at home. He was incidentally RENGALAKSHMI's senior. He was not here today. He is not here. I collaborated with him and my colleagues, Sendil and company, and we invited approximately 20 to 25 people 3 years in a row from the global south, from Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And some of the Latin Americans were Spanish speakers, and they couldn't speak a word of English. So we had some other Spanish speakers who knew English to translate them and so on. So 3 years we had a program of knowledge exchange, South-South knowledge exchange for exchanging agricultural and rural development knowledge. And we had 3 outsiders to come and prepare reports on that. This morning I sent it to Abhinita. Maybe I could share it with others this afternoon. And that was quite a successful program. So that why I mentioned this, that Swaminathan was not parochial. He wanted what he wanted to do for India to reach the world. There was one more thing I wanted to tell you today. Space and knowledge exchange and okay. The third was his dream couldn't come true. He wanted to take the knowledge centers to all of India. So we conducted a meeting with 50 people from around India, experts in different fields, took their opinion. We invited 3 development consultants to the meeting to compose what happened in the meeting. And then we wanted to roll it out as a national program. And it went up to the level of President Kalam, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, and the ministers concerned, and the bureaucrats in Delhi. And we had a meeting. Dr. Balaji and one Dr. Prabhakar from IIT came as experts in computer technology and so on. And a large meeting held in probably in a 5-star hotel. I don't remember now. But finally, it didn't take off. I think as somebody pointed out before me, I think it met with some bureaucratic obstacles. And that one, I think, to the end of his life, Swaminathan would have regretted that he couldn't achieve. So these are the 3 things I wanted to tell today. you said, how are we going to take IT as a key to rural development or agrarian progress, nutrition development, and so on. Like Balaji said, many agencies in the world, they pretend as if they want to do good, but they want to stop at some point. They don't want to reach. The same happens in the area I work, namely scientific and technical knowledge. A few publishers hold the world to ransom. So I could see the similarity between these two games. And we have to find out ways. Now that Swaminathan is not around, the rest of us, much less endowed, much less knowledgeable, and so on, we should find out the way. And finally, I should say, often you all refer to Swaminathan as scientist. Forget it. He's not a scientist. He's a humanitarian who happened to be a scientist. Essentially, he was a humanitarian. With that, I will stop. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer.
Thank you so much, Professor Arun, for responding to this. Although I disagree with you when you said you are least qualified, I think all the panelists here, everyone has immensely contributed to their own fields of knowledge. And we are really, I mean, personally, I learned a lot from all the responses to all the questions. And before I open up this panel to the audience for their questions, I would like to request our Director of Library Services, Mr. M. Madan, to share his reflections. And although he's in the background behind organizing this and bringing everyone together, but he's also the forefront of this event. So yeah, please, Mr. Madan, please go ahead and share your reflections on the panelists and your association with some of them, with MSSRF. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abhinita, for this opportunity. And I would like to thank Professor Dipanshu Mohan. When we just broke into conversation about MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, he had been very particular that we should really bring together people and talk about Professor Swaminathan and the foundation's achievements. See, reflecting on Professor MS Swaminathan, or largely the Professor MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, is in many ways reflecting on my own life, particularly my career. I started my career as a librarian with MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. So as a first generation graduate, I lived in several villages and small towns across Tamil Nadu. Joining MS Swaminathan Research Foundation marked a profound change in my life, where I met a lot of wonderful people. Ever since I joined, my academic journey has been very smooth, and the people I met there have continued even now to offer unwavering support throughout my life. So I'm actually indebted to Professor MS Swaminathan and his family and the foundation he actually started. With that personal gratitude, the year I joined MS Swaminathan Foundation is in the year 1998, 7 years probably after the first program of foundation was launched. When I joined, MS Swaminathan Foundation was a very happening place. Always there had been international meetings, programs, visitors, great people, celebrities. Every day goes without at least not seeing a celebrity is very rare. And the programs were very diverse. As is spoken here, I think there were programs on molecular biology, microbiology, conservation biology, and then the development practitioners, researchers. It's a very, the library was catering to very diversified set of users at that time, when I look back now. But we have to remember the 1998 till 2005. And 2005 is marked as the beginning of the second generation web. What we call it is the Web 2.0. Probably that in 2005, the first video was uploaded in YouTube. Before that, it was, we can comfortably call it as the first generation web and related technologies. Computers were new. When I joined, I used to type catalogs using an electronic typewriter, tens of thousands of cards that I have prepared, catalog cards. But I would say I was the one who had access to computers, that time powerful computers, because I joined MS Swaminathan Foundation. We got a lot of computers as gifts from Japan and other places. So I had the opportunity to touch a reasonably good computers of that time. And we had access to email very early, much before many others were privileged to have access to. And then we had access to internet as quickly as the other leading institutions got. And we were able to develop a software with my colleague who's no more now. And we were able to develop a library software to manage the routines of the library on our own. Though it is a small library, essentially hosting the personal collections of Professor MS Swaminathan and the other scientists who worked there, it was a very rich library in terms of access to databases. For example, MS Swaminathan Foundation had access, the copies of the CAB abstracts, which is an essential tool for agricultural research, agricultural bibliographic information with abstracts. We used to receive requests all over the world from agricultural colleges, and they would send us a floppy disk, which is of no use now. Nowadays, I think the computers don't even have the floppy reader facility. And the students used to send floppy disks by post with the set of queries. And with the computers available in our foundation, we used to execute searches in CAB abstracts and other databases and send the results in the download the results and store them in floppy disks and send them to the students across who were studying agriculture all over the world. So looking back, these services, now the technology is very much advanced. All of us have access to mobile and internet and web and related technologies through mobile. But that time, there was a complete divide in terms of access to information, access to computers and other things. But our library was actually filling the gap by some means, even if it is not of the 100% perfect service. And we used to provide these services to information services to all the people. So through the windows of libraries, I actually learned the library of MS Swaminathan Foundation. I actually learned the world, the information world. I learned libraries. Indeed, I came to Foundation to meet Professor Arunachalam, and I happened to stay there for about 7 years. Which was very purely incidental, and that the experience that I gained at MS Swaminathan Foundation was very, very strong. After that, I moved to other libraries, but I was able to be confidently handling the library responsibilities and information services and other areas very easily. So it's a place where I learned. A group of people work only for services. They will keep doing experiments, and that experiments are only to empower people at the rural grassroots people, women, and help them. that actually has been the guiding force for me even now. So I'm not moving away from that point wherever I work. So it's personally, once again, I would like to thank Professor Swaminathan, who is no more now, but still I'm indebted to him and his family and the foundation. And with this, I would like to stop here, and Abhinita may open the floor for questions. Thanks a lot once again for all the speakers here, and Abhinita and Professor Deepanshu Mogan and Professor Sudarshan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Madan. So now I open this to question from attendees and from other panelists. So anyone who has any question, please go ahead. We have some time, I think, for question answers. We can take a couple of questions or more. So please go ahead if anyone have any questions. Yes. Yeah, I think Siddharth Bhaskar, I think Professor Siddharth Bhaskar, he was raising his hand. So can the AV team unmute him? Because I'm not able to do it. Hello. Um, I think there is some issues here.
You can type the questions if you want.
Yeah, can you please type the questions otherwise, Mr. Bhaskar?
He has typed in the Q&A, Abhinita. You can.
Okay, yeah. So he's asking if we can build UPI without international support, and why can't we build domestic ICT solutions for agriculture without FAO and other organizations? I think it's a question for Dr. Balaji, as he spoke about Monsanto and others who are controlling a large part of this ICT solutions.
Thank you. That's a very, very important question. Indeed, that should have been asked earlier. I mean, there is nothing stopping India from developing it as much as I would say ideological preferences inside India. Because people who can build UPI, people who can build far more complex things can easily do that. I mean, I always cite, even this morning, I was saying how brilliant the innovation in Diksha platform is. It's a really high-class platform. There's nothing like that anywhere in the world except possibly in China. The problem, when I worked with India with National Agricultural Research Systems, my own discovery was that it is a lot of Indian leaders who do not want IT innovations in agriculture to proceed. It's not the other way around. Others, we don't need, I mean, when I say we, India does not need FAO, which does not have the capacity. It does not need many of the international organizations, which don't have the capacity to apply IT in agriculture. India has a lot more. But the ones in leadership positions, in Ministry of Agriculture, at state level, etc., a lot of them do not want to proceed in that direction. This is the truth. In fact, when Professor Swaminathan was Director General of ICAR, I was a student at Indian Institute of Technology in Kanpur. Kanpur got a brand new IBM computer. So did IRA. I mean, they got exactly the same computer at the same time, because ICAR at the time had that kind of drive and vision. But ICAR in 2005 was very different. When they borrowed money from World Bank to run National Agriculture Innovation Program, they were very, very different. There was a lot of defensiveness about, they were embarrassed to say that IT should be used in agriculture, I could say. So the problem is not with we lacking anything, or that others need to support us. No, we need to find ways to change the attitude. And I still find that 15 to 16 years later, I find that the attitude has not fundamentally changed. That's a tragedy.
Thank you so much. And I had the same question in my mind, that why it is not happening in the way that it was conceived. And anyone else who, yeah, please go ahead or type it in the Q&A section.
Maybe you should ask
think that-
individual panelist questions.
Yeah, I think the audience questions, that is all we have now. But yeah, I have one question for Dr. Bhavani, because since I had worked in the field of indigenous agrarian developments and food sovereignty, so I just wanted her to actually talk a bit about the MSSRF edition in Koraput and any work they are doing or any projects they're actively involved in. So this is a question just for my personal interest in it. So if she can shed some light on it or tell me to look through any documents, that would be great.
Well, Koraput is where the foundation has one of its permanent center, and it's called the Tribal Agrobiodiversity Center. And the approach has always been taking the tribal community, which is the predominant community there. Like Koraput has a large population of scheduled tribes, and all the work that is done, and in general, the approach of the foundation is participatory. A participatory approach, and whatever initiatives are undertaken is in discussion with the community. And as part of agro-biodiversity conservation, like Koraput is a secondary center of origin of rice. And so there are several local land races which have been conserved over the years by the indigenous tribes. So recording these and also promoting both in situ and ex situ conservation, and engaging in participatory plant breeding to identify specific land races which have market value, helping farmers to get build a sustainable value chain by cultivating and conserving these land races. So there are papers which have been written around this, and also there's a lot of indigenous knowledge among these tribal communities, which also wherever we work, we try to get that on board.
There is again an echo in the background. Dr. Bhavan,
Yeah, essentially that's what I wanted to say. I think Ranga can add something also.
No, still it's there. I'm not able to hear you.
No, I request Ranga to come in and add.
Yes, to build on further to Bhavani, and this particular landscape has a problem of both malnutrition and poverty together. So how do we address using the crop genetic resources? In terms of agriculture, we introduced the concept of farming system for nutrition or integrated farming systems, and building the nutrition literacy of the local communities. So these are key interventions supporting the interventions to address malnutrition as well as the poverty. And at the same time, we have been working with a couple of tribal communities in Koraput and neighboring districts in different dimensions. One is how the cropping systems can be intensified, how cropping systems can be diversified in few aspects, how it can be a kind of an integrated. So several dimensions related to the cropping systems, and also building the knowledge and capacity Then institutionalizing the whole interventions with the support of local grassroots institutions, either in the form of committees at the village level or at the community level, it is a form of producer organizations. So end to end, our approach has been focusing on building their capacity to address the issues. And also we adopt the approach of value chain in the whole. For example, in the traditional land races conservation, the 4C approach, that is starting with conservation, then consumption, commercialization, then linking to the market. So all these aspects were interlinked to bring a kind of an economics and conservation dimensions to our intervention. And the second aspect is focusing on building their capacity as a kind of a long-lasting one. How the transformation can be brought in among the tribal communities, both women and men, how this can be strengthened further using some of the innovative ideas like former field schools, or developing a kind of an cadre of community members, so that they will take the messages as a kind of an horizontal knowledge transfer to that region. So our experiences with those communities are kind of a rewarding one, and based on that, many policy inputs have been evolved from such work.
Thank you so much. So I think with this we'll conclude the panel discussion and this event. And I would like to thank first our Dean of Ideas, Professor Dipanshu Mohan, and he was the one who had this idea in mind to host the event to honor Dr. Swaminathan. And thank you, Professor Sudarshan, for joining us on us early Saturday morning and sharing your reflections with us. And to all our panelists, Dr. Bhavani, Dr. RENGALAKSHMI, Dr. Balaji, and Professor Arun, all of you, thank you so much for joining, and especially Dr. Balaji joining from Canada late night. I'm really honored to be a part of this event. And thank you especially Mr. Madan and Dr. Shamindra, everyone for participating in this event. And I would like to say that we plan to further organize such event as a part of Ideas, events that discuss about development issues, but with a scientific lens and public policy discussions and debate. And it's a request from my side that anyone of you who would be in Delhi next time, please contact me and don't hesitate to visit our campus in Sonipat. We'll be glad to host all of you. And thank you so much for being a part of this event. And with this, we'll conclude. Thank you, the AV team, and Nasima, Nirmal, everyone behind the scenes who have worked to make this event a success. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.